Alright, back out at the Hutchinson house. It's been a couple of days. The rain finally stopped. As you can see, the cotton is still doing great. And also, as you can see, I've been out here for the last 3 hours listing the rows. Now, listing is just basically weeding, except you also take the roots off and then you remove all of the weeds and you dump them down here in the alley. So that's what I've been up to. This row over here, row 1, has been completely listed. And over here, row 2, it's been halfway weeded. Right here, row 3, I haven't even touched this yet other than starting this front end. And row 4, I have just weeded. And I was going to use my loop hoe over there, cultivator, action hoe, whatever you call it. Things get about 400 different names. But I was going to use that to do all of the listing. But these weeds are too damn thick, and the ground's too wet, and the loop hoe just can't get through it. It bogs down real quick. So I'm having to go through by hand and pull all the big stuff up, and then come back through here with the action hoe, loop hoe, cultivator, whatever you want to call it, and scrape off all of the sedge and the centipede grass, because that's got rhizomes underground. But I'm able to pull up this ragweed or bidens or whatever it is. I think this is ragweed. It's one of the two. They look pretty damn similar, but I think ragweed's the hairy one, and that one's hairy. The ragweed, the blackberries, and this Florida pusely or Mexican clover, whatever you want to call it. I'm able to pull all that up just fine, and I'm not particularly concerned about the Mexican clover because it doesn't climb. It just sort of spreads, and it helps suppress a lot of the other weeds. And it's also a nice pollinator plant, so I'm not terribly concerned about pulling that stuff up because it's not a big deal. So, as you can see, that's mostly what's over there. However, I am trying to get out all of the major broadleafs because they're competing with the cotton for light. The Mexican clover is just competing for water and nutrients. These things are looking real nice. I'm getting a lot of auxiliary bud activity down in there. I may even see squares by the end of the month. Typically, listing would have been done in May, and we're in the middle of June now, but that drought really set us back, and that cold snap and the sore shin also put a hamper on it, so we're running about a month behind as far as maturity goes. So traditionally they were seeing flowers by the end of June, and I don't think we're on track to do that. So I'm going to keep weeding and listing, and once I'm done with all that, I'm going to go through and I'm going to start thinning, because we're at that point where we're going to have to start thinning, and there's some obvious plants that have no business being in there anymore. And it just so happened to work out that the only places where I have empty spaces are the places where I don't have two nice looking plants on either side, so I can't just leave two plants. Like right there, I could have left, say, that plant and then that plant could have taken up this space and that plant this space, and I could have just left them there. They just sorted that all out. They wouldn't have been as productive, but it would have been more productive than just one plant. However, I've got one good plant and two pretty much dead plants and one good plant, so can't do that. And then you come over here and I got two good plants, but it's right next to two good plants, which is right next to a good plant, 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 next to a void. So in a situation like this, I can't leave two plants because that plant's going to be competing with that plant. Well, that plant's going to be over here while competing with this plant, and it's not going to be as productive as just one plant. And that's kind of annoying. But I might be able to do some of that over here, like maybe that one, if none of those recover. That's my strategy, at least. There's a couple ones over here on the unfertilized rows that actually look pretty good, like this guy. He's recovered quite a bit. Same with those down there. And there's a couple down over there. So I'm interested to see how all this plays out. I hope I'll be able to do some good seed selection. Alrighty, well, I've got the listing just about done. I've got rows 1 and 2 fully listed, and I got halfway through row 3. But I've run out of water, and I've been at this about 7 hours, and all of my strength is gone. So I'm gonna have to come back tomorrow and finish this out, but it's looking pretty good. And then once I get out here and finish listing and then maybe host some more soil up here and do some actual hilling, I'll start thinning out the cotton, pull out all these little shriveled up sickly ones out of all the healthy spaces. I'll free up some nutrients for the other stuff, remove some disease vectors. So we'll see about that. Alrighty, after 7 hours yesterday and a quick about 30 minutes today, I have finished weeding and listing all the rows. Deegan came out sometime this afternoon and did a little bit of weeding over there before he got attacked by fire ants. So thankfully with that saved me a couple minutes listing. So I'm still pretty wore out, but after an exciting day in the office spending 6 hours learning about state tax reforms, I got to come out here for 30 minutes to get hot and sweaty before I go home. And that was after spending 30 minutes being stuck in bridge traffic just to get over this bridge over here and turn onto this road. Woo, island life. And nonprofit organization dealing with federal tax returns life. All the cotton has now been weeded and listed. And while I was out here today, I just went ahead and hilled everything too a little bit. So just to make up for any bit of erosion that's occurred, get some of the nutrient cycling back in and add some organic matter on top from all this grass I've listed up. So I'm not going to get to thinning today. A lot of the stuff that looked pretty wilty yesterday has dried out significantly just from me removing all of that organic matter. So come Monday, I'll come out here and thin everything. And then we'll have a pretty clear idea of where we're actually going to have plants. And I don't know if I'm going to thin out healthy looking plants yet. It's probably time for me to do that. And if I do start that, any plants that I can get out of the ground intact just by pulling, I'm going to try and transplant over here onto top end of 2 or 3. Maybe over there on the 4. Probably not on the 4. So actually I think I'm going to transplant everything within the rows when I do that. And I'm about 80% sure everything I transplant will die. And if it doesn't die, it'll be severely stunted for the rest of its life and probably won't produce much of anything. But I'm going to try it anyway because they're either going to die or they're going to be transplanted. And I would rather have a transplanted plant that produces a little bit than a bunch of dead plants that don't produce anything because I pulled them and didn't even bother trying to transplant them. So we'll see how that goes. It should yield some interesting results. I do have some hope that maybe one thing will survive a transplantation. I don't see any reason why they wouldn't, other than the fact that they're going to be out here in pretty droughty conditions. So a transplant's going to be very susceptible to drought stress first couple weeks of its life. So I may just come out here and have to water all the transplanted stuff every other day. But we shall see. This has been the end of my weeding and listing adventure these last couple of days, and it's the weekend and I'm excited to go home. So Tom out.